All right, so welcome everyone to the Analytics Instrumentation sync on the 26th of September. We have a few topics to get through. Maybe let's quickly start with actually kind of change the order a bit, so we get, because there's two discussions which potentially could take longer, and Tanuja has some async comments so that we kind of make sure that those are mentioned. The first time I can voice for Tanuja is unable to make it at this time. Happy to do either an hour earlier or 3 hours later. I assume 3 hours later wouldn't work for you, Nico, right? Okay. So my suggestion there would be that we that I create an issue, or in a retro we start a discussion around better times for the syncs. I think there's, for example, also the problem that you cannot make it to the afternoon sync on Tuesdays. At the same time, we now are in this weird time when countries are changing daylight savings times at different dates. So I think New Zealand changed last weekend. Australia is going to change next weekend. And Europe is going to change in a month from now, roughly. So that's also something to consider. I agree that that the whole point of the sync meetings is that as many people as possible can make it. So maybe we can just start an async discussion on what would be the most ideal time to allow the most people to attend those meetings. Or does anyone have a different idea on how to handle this?
I think that sounds like a good idea.
All right, the next point is that from Tanuja, also the planning for the Q4 OKRs is being tracked in a specific issue. It would be great to get the team's inputs. So I know that last time, I think our OKRs came pretty late and we're kind of already in a finished state when everyone was made aware of those. I think we all want to do a better job here. So Tanuja already laid out some ideas around directions. These, just to make sure these OKRs are then for Q4, which is gonna be starting in November. So it's November, December, January. The idea behind starting this discussion now is really to give us time to first think about what are the general directions we want to go, like what are the overall objectives really, and then kind of start to breaking it down into something achievable and something that's actually trackable in a way. Because at first, objectives can still be kind of rough ideas of a direction, versus then when we go towards key results, those need to be something that, like we had previously, which is like, okay, create X amount of SDKs, or so something that we can actually track and we can assign a percentage completion to. And ideally, I think that's something that we all at least keep track of, or then also get involved, because the worst thing that can happen, and which automatically happens again and again, is that these OKRs just become a pointless process exercise, which would be a shame, because ideally they can be something that shapes our general direction, where we all agree on this is the direction we want to go, and this is what we agree on that we can achieve within the next 3 months, or what we at least want to strive for achieving within the next 3 months. And kind of we commit together to that, and then use this as like a North Star, as a direction that kind of guides everything and also keeps us in check, and most issues, or most of the things that we work on, should then be directed towards those OKRs as soon as we set them up. So yeah, please everyone just look into there. I think we can probably also have like a sync discussion in one of the next syncs when Tanuja is also here. And roughly into the same direction than the next point from Tanuja, we are in the process of building an iteration plan for the cross-stage data vision. It would be great to get the team's inputs, refine our vision if needed, and create an iteration plan. So that's kind of one step further, looking beyond just the next quarter, about a bit more long-term, when we look at the vision between analytics instrumentation and also product analytics and how this all belongs together and how we can make it work for our customers. Trying to think a bit more globally where we want to go. Also there, I think everyone's input and at least understanding of kind of what does a potential future look like, or where do we want to go, and giving their input there is really helpful. Do we have any questions towards those items? Okay. Then I have a first discussion piece, and I just like to get everyone's input on that. I don't know. I mean, Ankit and Jonas, you probably don't even remember that. Nico should remember that. We had a analytics instrumentation on call rotation beforehand. So just to give everyone an understanding that was not like the dev on call with, I don't know, pager duty and so on. But as far as I remember, it was kind of on a weekly alternating basis. So every week, someone else of the engineers in the team was on call. And what on call meant, in my understanding, was that you are the primary person that responds to any kind of queries that come into the Slack channel from external people. Like if anyone has a question and so on, you need to make sure that those are unanswered, or maybe also redirect them to other persons if you're not the right person to answer them. Or if there's, I mean, we already had, for example, the bad events alert or something like that. Also in that case, you were the primary person if you were on call that week. And again, it was kind of iterating on a weekly basis. And I don't think it considered time zones. So, for example, when, I don't know, Nico was on call and something happened throughout the day, it could have been that worst case, it waits until Nico comes online, or the other way around if something happens during New Zealand time and someone like Piotr was on call, then it would have to wait until then. I don't think it would keep, as far as I remember, it wouldn't keep anyone else from responding. It's just kind of, okay, there's at least one person that feels responsible for responding to alerts and queries during that week. And I'm not sure, but I have the feeling that when there is incoming queries, and especially also when there's alerts, like the bad events alert and so on, yeah, it feels like maybe I feel responsible, but I'm unsure how it feels for the rest of you. So if you feel like it's clear to you when you should jump into the channel, or whether it might help to actually have something like an on-call rotation again, where it's clear to you that, I don't know, 1 week you really need to care about what happens in the instrumentation channel, even when you're not directly tagged, and the next week you might not. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I think generally we're like, because the biggest problem is is time zone and then sick leaves, and it's very difficult to kind of manage it. I think the best the best probably one of the solutions is just to, for everyone, just if there is like if there is some messages in the channel from external, from somebody out of the team, just to answer them as quick as possible, or tag someone who is probably knows more about the field. I probably, because I usually tag Ankit for like front end things, and internal events I would probably tag Jonas, but otherwise I try to always answer. And I also, in some channels, and we used to do, I believe as well, the idea is that all questions should have at some point like a green mark, like done. So for this, somebody asking like, where is the new documentation? Or could you point us? You just answer and then you put like done. So next person knows that no need to kind of go on this thread. And just to make sure in the end of the day that questions from a little bit while back all have green marks. If not, then just good for everyone has responsible, like feel responsible to kind of address everything. Yeah. And usually, I mean, there is not such a big thing. It's either they're asking us to review some merge request or some simple problems, which is not that difficult usually. Yeah.
So I kind of agree with what Nico said for external queries, but maybe like we can have on call for like Monte Carlo alerts or other Sisense alerts, right? So for that particular thing, maybe we can assign someone to check into that. But for external queries, like anyone is available can jump into that.
I think I'm a little bit more on the other side. That I think I can go a whole day without checking the channel, or at least like half a day. Which means I'm probably not responding very often because things are responded. So maybe I would do more like my share of the work if I knew, okay, this week I put notifications on the channel and check in on it. Yeah, I think I would be be helpful for me to kind of make sure that I also participate.
Yeah.
And I think it's also in general, I try not to have notifications on things in Slack. Just not to get into this habit of checking Slack all the time.
So Nico,
I also volunteer to take a week of on call, and then the next week nobody's on call, and we're just back to like the whole group. But maybe, I don't know. Or maybe I should just put it in my calendar that for myself this week I will do my best effort to respond to. I don't know. It also, I mean, it depends a little bit on if we are unhappy with the current response times, or kind of who's like, if anybody's picking up alerts and questions and so on.
Well, every time there is an alert, I can see that Basti already answered it. And I was like, okay.
But that might be because those oftentimes happen during EMEA hours out of some reason, and then they're answered. Because it's a good point from what Jonas said, whether we're unhappy. And I mean, I didn't get any external feedback that, I don't know, it takes us too long to respond or anything like that on external queries. So that seems to be fine. I had a bit of the feeling with the alerts. So there happened, for example, alerts beforehand where nobody checked in until I was there, and I might have even been off like a day before or something like that. So an alert went a whole day without being checked out, and that's definitely not good. That nobody kind of just feels responsible for it, or I mean, I honestly don't know the reason in this case, if it's like everyone's just so busy, or the Jonas case of, okay, I just didn't look into the channel, or the case of, okay, I don't feel equipped to handle this alert, I don't even know what it means, so I'm just going to ignore it kind of case. But that's what brought up this discussion for me, is a bit also the fear now with the Monte Carlo alerts that we're creating more alerts, but then it's unclear, like an alert happens and it's unclear on like who is actually going to take it on or take charge of the investigation.
I have kind of an idea why is it happening, because usually everybody is busy and trying to finish their work, right? This is priority. And when there is a small request and you understand, okay, I can answer it and I know exactly approximately how much time to answer, and then I send button and I forget. And this is kind of easy to manage and to kind of organize your future day. But if an alerts come, first of all, I personally don't have like a script to follow, right? I understand I will need to log in a few places and start executing queries, and probably I forgot most of the stuff. It's not in one place, it's kind of pieces of information across. So, and I have no idea how much it take. It might take like a day, right? And if I have a bug, severity 1, or if I have a few requests emerging, requests waiting for me to review, and something else, and it's becoming big, like a ball that you usually, okay, I will look later, and it's just not happening. It's not like, I don't think people sabotaging, but it's like, okay, I'll look just afternoon, but afternoon something else happening. So if we had some kind of maybe simple, like, like people on call, people, usually people who on call, they have some script like quickly, like for example, if we received like too many bad events, where we log in, what query we run, and how we kind of analyze at least what kind of we see in results, and what do we do after that, right? We either call feature log, or not feature log, it's called like alert the channel, or there is somebody else or somebody out of team and who is actually responsible for data warehouse. I know a couple of engineers from other team, but I mean, right now I cannot say. And that would be much easier, right? And especially with Monte Carlo alert, I kind of did have a look what is Monte Carlo and what does it do. But if alerts come, I will just like, help Basi, help me. I don't know what to do. Something is not working. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I realize that it's not enough metrics in the data arriving in the metrics. Something is missing. Yeah, okay, Monte Carlo probably easier than bad events, but still. And then, I mean, even if alert arrives at my 7 o'clock at night, I understand that probably I just need half an hour to tackle it, to notify everyone who is necessary, to make sure that it's super severe or not severe, is super severe. I even have a link maybe to a template for a issue, for a kind of critical issue to create, and then pass it to someone, and then just sleep and just go and relax, and not spend not to have a risk to spend half a night, for example, on Friday, when most people maybe stop working a little bit earlier and it's difficult to get attention. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I'm just unsure, for example, how like I think we can create like a start of a script on how to react to those. But then again, it's oftentimes it's an investigation. You might have like a starting point of, okay, like look at those 3 different queries or those 3 different Sisense dashboards or something, but then whatever happens from there is kind of depending on what you see, right? It's kind of hard to predict what's gonna go wrong before it's gonna go wrong.
I just give you a simple example. There was a question about how do I get the latest ping for GitLab.com. I had the best intention to help him, and I went and I'm like, okay, I don't remember the schema. You need to go and check the schema, tables, and change it periodically, right? They kind of rearrange it. And I spent maybe more than an hour, and I found some kind of answer, which was not actually great, but kind of probably helped him a little bit. And then you came and then you just pasted like a simple snippet from SQL, like select from there, where is host name not staging, and that's it, limit 1. And that's the answer. If you have it in somewhere in your notes or somewhere else, it probably takes a minute. But for me, it takes an hour just because it was a little bit sporadic, and I don't have this. I don't know where to extract this data from. Where is extract this answer from quickly? Yeah, I know where is to find, and if I spend some time, I will dig it in. But if there is a few requests, and not an issue for us to do, right? Not planned job, and if I need to spend this extra time on every single request, it's kind of too much. But that's I see one of the issues. That's from requests as well as from alerts.
How about kind of creating a log of questions we were asked? So it's kind of like a FAQ, but without the F, because we just add them as soon as we have a question and an answer there. So that, for example, in this case, the question would be there and Basti's answer would be there. And then we could go look through that list kind of for hints of where to start. Look, I think what Nico describes is that's also my my situation, my feeling around this is there is a lot of. Usually, it would take me a lot of digging around and trying things out to have anything that's an answer that's useful to somebody asking it. And a comment on this having a template or kind of a script for the issues or for the alerts. I think it's true that you cannot really script it to the end because it's usually something new. But I think just having like a little description, a short description about what is this alert about, like why does it happen? Why was it like what was it set up to notify about, and which systems are usually involved in debugging this thing. I think that would be a way better starting point than just try to understand it from scratch.
Yeah, I think having a template would be a good idea, because like I remember one instance where someone pinged and told like they are not getting this service ping data, and like I was searching for some time and then asking the channel, and then you came and you said like it's been a long time issue. So like I took like 1 hour or something to figure it out. But like if those template like already asked question would be there, like it would be easier for other team members to say, okay, this has already been answered.
Yeah, I mean, we can easily start this kind of log that Jonas mentioned and just try it out. I guess it could just be a Google Doc that we start adding question answer to as soon as something got answered, and it would be I guess ideally it would be the task of the one answering the question and putting the green check mark to then put it there. So I'm going to make a note for myself to create this as a process that we're doing, and then we can just try it out. And if over a long time we see that it doesn't really help, we can discard it again. And if it helps, then all the better.
How about we add use a separate emoji for that, like a docs emoji or something, because then we can go through the channel already now and kind of move some things over and mark them as copied. Also, just for the exercise, to see if I can actually extract something out of the last 3 months from the channel.
No, there's a docs thingy. Would anyone volunteer for setting this up?
I can do
Okay. Okay.
Just
okay.
You don't need to go
maybe
through the whole thing, but as soon as there's some structure, we can also start adding more and copy more things with it.
All right, then Ankit, I'll leave it to you to set something up.
Yeah, and maybe we can add link from our page, analytics instrumentation in handbook. Otherwise,
yeah,
I mean, I will definitely forget where is it.
Yeah.
And
So
the
I would
first
say,
one I would put just
yeah,
just that script, your script, how to get the latest GitLab ping.
Yeah, and I mean, we can also periodically then check this through and maybe extract the actually FAQs, sort of the frequent ones, into something more structured, like I don't know, a docs page or a handbook page or something. But for now, I think just a Google Doc link with a with kind of the list of the most recent ones, and having this link in the guide, that should help. And we can also, Ankit, as soon as you have it, you can add it to the description of the Slack channel, so that people from within the organization can also easily look there.
Makes sense. Yeah. I was mainly thinking about creating a Google Sheet versus Google Doc.
So I mean, I'm not particular whether it's a sheet or like a Google Doc would be just the normal word like thingy, the thing, for example, a Google Docs page, so like the sync meeting notes that we have here, whereas a sheet is like this the Excel like sheet. I mean, I personally don't have a big preference. I could think that because it's mostly text, that it's easier to just follow through as in like a big sheet, and not in a sheet, in a big docs page where it's like one page where you always have question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. But I'd leave that up to you on however you want to format it. Cool.
I would advocate for the docs format, just because we might have some code snippets, and yeah, it's more freestyle than if we decide on the sheet structure.
Yeah.
All right. So I have one more discussion point, which, I mean, I don't know, how are we looking for time with everyone? Do you still have time, or does someone need to jump? Then I can also postpone it.
I have time.
Yeah, me too.
All right, and at least let's get started, because this is kind of very time relevant for right now. So I think it's better that we talk about it now than kind of postpone it by another week. I mean, with you, Jonas, I already talked about this, but I'd be curious to also get Ankit's and Nico's input on this before we kind of actually run through it. So I'm currently working on the documentation for internal events, and mainly kind of thinking about, okay, how do we restructure our documentation to make it easier to consume and to kind of make it easy for people to use our event tracking and so on. And one of the things is that we already, I discovered that we already have documentation for features that are actually deprecated. So in this case, it's the usage data.rb, which still has documentation in the official docs. And then again, we also have, right now, there's still documentation in there for Redis total counts or just HTML counts and all those kinds of things. And I think originally the thinking was to just mark those things as deprecated. But I think also Nico brought it up in one of his comments that we would nearly need to put this deprecated label kind of everywhere, because people might be jumping to a specific point in the documentation. So if you just put something like, okay, this is deprecated to the top of the page, people might not see it and still kind of use something. So when I went through this, for me personally, I thought about whether we couldn't just remove the documentation for those features. So in theory, I mean, something like Redis HTML counts and so on, they are still working. So this is removing documentation about something that is currently still working, but also something that people should no longer instrument. we are starting to have a migration guide. So to tell people, okay, if you have a Redis HLR counter or Redis counter or something, how do you migrate to internal events? So from my perspective, it would be a lot cleaner to just get rid of these docs. But I can also see the argument that we're potentially, I don't know, losing information. There is the possibility on the on our official docs page, also so on docs.gitlab.com, to look at the docs from previous versions. So it's not like the information would be completely lost, but it'd certainly be harder to get to if we remove the information completely. And as you can probably hear, I'm also not 100% sure. And I think we need to kind of have one common approach there, whether we rather remove these things or keep them in and mark them somehow. So I wanted to get also additional opinions here.
I would delete it, to be honest. It's too much support. I mean, it's not like we have to maintain it, we just keep it in case, but people outside of the team shouldn't really even probably know about it. But if we need something, we always can get it from the Git history. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Also, one thing I thought about after we talked yesterday, Vasti, is there's this risk, even if we like put deprecated all over the place, that when people bump into it, they will read it and then realize it's deprecated. But it's very hard when you have kind of read something to kind of unread it. Like it's very like, because it's kind of this big, and people are already confused, right? And then we add this other thing. It's like, oh no, wait a second, I shouldn't have even have read that. But it's hard not to keep it. At least that is for me kind of, oh, that thing is not true. I have to kind of remove that, especially if people are trying to build up an understanding of what they have to do. So I think it would also just be better to. I mean, we can always point people to the old documentation, old versions, if for some reason they need to modify something and they cannot migrate right now, or something. Yeah.
I agree on removing it. But like, if we are adding the new content, like we don't know like what issue they might face, the user, like maybe we need someone to proofread it, I guess, like whether they can, with this information, can they able to instrument it? That's what I'm unsure of, like before removing it.
Yeah, I can see that problem, but at the same time, I think even in that case, at least to me, it would probably be better if someone then, I don't know, fails and hopefully tells us about it, and we realize that something specific is missing from the current documentation, rather than they kind of look through some deprecated documentation, figure it out that way, and we never know that something is actually missing from the new documentation, right? I mean, I agree with the proofreading point of view and maybe like testing the documentation a few times while we are in the background and people know that they can reach out to us. That would be helpful. And I think we already did that once or twice where we had people set up new internal events. But yeah, it's good to hear that everyone's agreeing on removing. Okay. Do we have any other comments on this or anything else that we covered today? Then thanks a lot for your participation, and yeah, see you around. Have a nice rest of the day.